Thanksgiving night, I was still scrubbing dried blood from my shoes after 12 hours in the ER. My hands ached, my back screamed. But when I saw my daughter's duffel bag by the front door, still zipped, still untouched, my body went cold. She was supposed to be at my parents' place, surrounded by family, warmth, pumpkin pie. Instead, I found her curled up on the couch, wearing the same cardigan she'd picked out just to impress her grandma. Her eyes were red. "They said there wasn't space for me," she whispered. "Not at the table, not in the house." I didn't cry, I didn't scream, but I did something else, something permanent. Thanksgiving night, the kind of cold that settles in your bones, had already sunk into my skin by the time I stepped out of the hospital. 12 hours on my feet in the ER, 2 cardiac arrests, 1 teenage overdose, and a man who insisted he just needed some cranberry juice while actively having a stroke. It was chaos, and I was exhausted. All I wanted was to get home, shower the hospital off of me, and sleep. Instead, I walked through the front door and stopped cold. Right there, next to the entrance, was Mia's duffel bag, still zipped up tight, her coat slung awkwardly over the arm of the couch. And then I saw her. My 16-year-old daughter was curled on the sofa, shoes still on, eyes barely closed, like she hadn't truly fallen asleep. That gut-level panic hit me first. Had something happened, an accident, a breakdown? "Mia?" I whispered. Her eyes opened immediately, red-rimmed, watery. She didn't even pretend to smile. "Hey," she said softly. "Why are you here?" I asked, walking over and crouching next to her. "They said there wasn't any space." I blinked. "Space? Where?" She gave this tiny shrug and looked down at her hands. "At the table. Grandma said they weren't expecting me, that there were too many people already." My chest tightened. "But you got there on time, right?" "Yeah, early even. I left early just like we planned. She opened the door like I was the mailman or something. Said they didn't have a bed for me either. She said she didn't want me driving late, but also didn't know where I'd sleep." Mia tried to laugh. "So, I left." I sat down next to her slowly. "Did anyone offer to drive you home?" "Nope." "Did they even feed you?" Another shrug. "Lily was sitting in my seat. Grandpa was talking to her like she was Miss America. Grandma said it was a full house this year. Aunt Cassidy nodded along like that made sense, so I made toast." She pointed to the coffee table, where a paper towel sat with a cold, half-eaten slice of toast and a banana beside it. That was her Thanksgiving dinner. I felt something crack in me, quiet and sharp. Not full-blown rage yet, more like the moment right before the ice breaks underfoot. That kind of tension. "I wasn't that hungry anyway," Mia said, voice trembling. "Not really." And then she blinked hard, bit her lip, tried not to cry. But it came anyway, slowly, like she couldn't hold it back anymore. "I just thought maybe this year would be different." I wrapped my arms around her. She didn't resist. She leaned into me like she'd been holding herself upright for hours. Later that night, when she'd finally fallen asleep, still wearing the cardigan she'd chosen because Grandma once said she liked it, I walked into the kitchen and stared at the bag she had packed. She'd even brought homemade cookies for her cousins. No one even let her through the door. I opened the fridge. There wasn't anything special inside. No backup plan. Why would there be? We trusted them. That was the part I couldn't shake. It wasn't the lack of food, or the fact she had to drive herself home in the dark. It was that they looked her in the eyes, this kind, quiet girl who came early, with gifts, with a smile, and told her, "There's no room for you." They didn't mean the table. They meant not you. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make sure no one ever made my daughter feel disposable again. Starting tomorrow, after Mia fell asleep, I sat in the kitchen for a long time. Not crying, not even angry yet, just unraveling. It's strange how one moment, like a slice of cold toast on a paper towel, can trigger every memory you've tried to file away in the "don't think about this" drawer. Because watching Mia walk through something I had survived years ago, that was different. That was war. You see, I've always been the strange one in my family. That label stuck to me before I even understood what strange meant. I was 6 the first time my mom slapped her hand on the kitchen counter and said, "Jesus, Vanessa, what is wrong with you?" I'd asked if I could keep a dead bird I found outside, so I could dissect it. Not because I was trying to be weird. I was just fascinated. I wanted to understand how things worked. My little sister, Cassidy, screamed bloody murder, told everyone I was trying to bring the bird back to life like some kind of Frankenstein. I got grounded for being curious. That was the beginning. I was the kid who asked for anatomy books for Christmas. I brought a microscope to show and tell. I once tried to explain blood pressure during dinner. No one listened. They called me a know-it-all, too intense, too serious. At school, I was the girl who actually read the syllabus. At home, that made me annoying. Cassidy? She could fail a math quiz and still get a standing ovation. She was charming, funny, loud in a way people liked. She cried at the right moments, told stories that made people laugh. She knew how to shine. And she made sure I never forgot it. She used to call me Dr. Buzzkill, then later Dr. Moneybags. I guess that was progress. By the time I was 12, my dad had already started telling people I couldn't possibly be his. To be my kid, he'd joke, you'd have to love beer and hate books. Once I overheard him ask my mom if she'd ever cheated. Said he always had doubts because I didn't look like anybody. That night I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. I never brought it up, never wanted to give them the satisfaction. No one in my family went to college. Most didn't even finish high school on the first try. I studied in secret. I waited tables to pay for school, took the graveyard shifts no one wanted. I came home with aching feet, bruised arms, and no help. But I made it. I became a doctor. I thought maybe that would change something. Spoiler, it didn't. My parents never visited the hospital where I worked. Not once. When I bought my first car outright, they said I was showing off. When I finally had enough to buy them a modest house, just a little 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, they accepted the keys like it was overdue rent. And they still managed to say, "You think you're better than us now." The truth, I never did. I just wanted peace, belonging, a table where there was room for me and for Mia. But now, after what they did to her, all I could see were the echoes, the same cold looks, the same dismissiveness, the same sentence, spoken in polite tones but sharpened with meaning. There just isn't space. They'd said it to me in every way except out loud, and now they said it to my daughter. Only this time, I wasn't a scared little girl trying to dissect a bird. This time, I was a grown woman with a mortgage in my name, a daughter to protect, and nothing left to prove. And for the first time in my life, they were about to find out what it looked like when the outcast stopped apologizing. The next morning, the house was still quiet. Mia was sleeping in late, her face finely relaxed, her hands no longer clenched in her sleep like the night before. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of stale coffee, staring at the stack of unopened mail. One envelope caught my eye, the mortgage statement, 7 years of payments, always on time, always mine. I bought that house for my parents during my first real contract as an attending physician. It wasn't fancy, just a small 2-bedroom, a decent yard, enough space for them to age with some dignity. They never owned a home before that, always blamed bad luck or bad credit or the market. But I knew the truth. Money was never their priority unless someone else was footing the bill. I didn't buy it to win points. I bought it because I thought, maybe it would buy me a family again. Maybe if I took care of them, they'd finally see me, respect me. Instead, they treated it like it was theirs all along. Every holiday, every visit came with this quiet undertone. You owe us, for being your parents, for tolerating you. And I tolerated it, for years. I paid the mortgage, the utilities. I added them to my dental plan. I paid for prescriptions, groceries, the occasional emergency that somehow always coincided with birthdays or summer trips. And then came the call. It was early November. Cassidy rang, voice bright and fake sweet like she always was when she wanted something. "Harper got into the Harvard pre-college program," she beamed, like I was supposed to throw confetti. "That's great," I said and meant it. "Harper's a smart kid." Then came the ask. "It's just $18,700 for the summer," Cassidy added like she was reading off a menu. "But this could change her life." I paused. "Cassidy, I can't swing that." There was silence, followed by, "Are you serious?" I explained, again, that I was already covering everything for our parents. I'd just paid out of pocket for Dad's sleep apnea machine. My own daughter had never asked for anything close to that, not even a school trip to DC. She understood limits. But Cassidy didn't. She snapped, "Wow, must be nice to have it all and still be so selfish. She's your niece." I held the phone away from my ear, but I still heard her say it. "She's going places, Vanessa. Maybe you're just jealous." That one hit differently. Not because it was true, but because it sounded just like our mother. 2 days later, I overheard my mom whispering on the phone when she thought I was out of earshot. "She's always been that way," she said, trying to hold everyone back, just because she was the smart one. I didn't interrupt. I didn't cry. I just walked into the other room and picked up Mia's school ID off the counter, the same one she'd taken herself to the DMV to get. She studied for that driving test like it was med school. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about one dinner. This was about a pattern, generational, deliberate, and cruel. A system of always demanding more from me, while giving less to my daughter. And now they'd use Thanksgiving to send a message. They didn't forget Mia, they excluded her, to remind me of my place. So I decided to remind them of something too. That house? It's in my name, and I was done pretending it wasn't. The morning after Thanksgiving always has a strange stillness to it, like the world's recovering from too much food and too many fake smiles. That Friday morning, I wasn't recovering, I was finished. Mia was still sleeping upstairs. Her duffel bag hadn't moved. Her cardigan, the one she wore just for her grandmother, was still draped over the arm of the couch. There was a crumb from the toast she'd made sitting on the coffee table like a quiet insult. I didn't want an apology. I wanted distance, I wanted truth. So I opened my laptop and drafted a letter. Not an angry rant, not a dramatic monologue, just facts. Who paid the mortgage, who covered the utilities, who filled their prescriptions, who never asked for anything in return, and who they'd turned away. It was short, 2 pages, printed on crisp paper, signed at the bottom. It wasn't a threat, it was a notice. 60 days, vacate the property. That house was a gift, until it became a weapon. Now it was just real estate. I slid the letter into a plain white envelope. No return address, no decoration, just their names. I tucked it into my purse and turned to my husband. Can we drive over? He didn't ask questions. He just nodded, grabbed his keys, and opened the passenger door for me like he always does when he knows I'm holding something heavy on the inside. It was still early, cold gray sky, the kind of chill that bites through your sleeves. Their neighborhood was quiet, like always. Rows of trimmed bushes and mailboxes shaped like little barns. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw 2 extra cars parked outside, Cassidy's, and someone else's, maybe a cousin who stayed behind for leftovers. Typical. I hoped they'd be gone, I didn't want a scene. We walked up to the porch, past the crooked Thanksgiving wreath still hanging from the door. A turkey made of felt and pine cones, eyes googly and off-center. I rang the bell. Waited. Nothing. I rang again, knocked twice. Still nothing. My husband gently touched my arm. Let's just leave it, he said softly. I stood there a second longer, then nodded. We turned back toward the car. I slid the envelope against the door frame, just enough so it wouldn't blow away, tucked beneath the wreath. I was opening the car door when I heard it. The creak of the screen, a slippered footstep. I turned. My mother stepped out, still wearing the same fuzzy robe she always wore around the holidays. The one she used to brag about getting 80% off at Kohl's. She saw the envelope, bent down, picked it up, opened it. I watched her face go from blank to pale, then, "Frank!" Her voice cracked like glass. "Frank, get out here! She's throwing us out!" My father stepped into view, still in yesterday's clothes, confused, squinting. "What the hell?" he grumbled. Then Cassidy appeared, coffee mug in hand, Christmas pajamas, like it was still supposed to be a cozy morning. "What's going on?" she asked. My mother pointed down the driveway at me like I was roadkill that had wandered back. "You ungrateful little—" We got in the car before she finished. Didn't matter. I'd heard it all before. By the time we got home, my phone was already buzzing. Calls, texts, voicemails. I didn't answer. On the 6th ring, I finally picked up. My mother didn't say hello. She just screamed, "You've lost your damn mind!" No mention of Mia, no apology, not even fake concern. Just rage, control, denial. "If you do this," my father shouted in the background, "you're no daughter of ours." And in that moment, with her voice clawing through the phone, I realized they hadn't just refused Mia a seat at the table. They were reminding me that I never had one either. I wish I could say the phone stopped ringing. It didn't. By Saturday morning, I had 14 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and a barrage of texts that ranged from guilt-tripping to outright delusional. One cousin messaged, "Not my place, but this feels extreme. You only get one mom." Another said, "Couldn't you have just talked to them first?" Cassidy texted, "This is going to ruin your reputation. Think of your job, Vanessa." I let the silence do the talking. By Monday, the eviction notice had been served, formally this time. My lawyer handled it. Official paperwork, time-stamped and notarized. 60 days to vacate, no extensions. They couldn't tear this one in half. I kept paying the mortgage, for now. I wasn't going to let my credit take the hit. But everything else? Gone. Utilities? Shut off. Cable? Canceled. Insurance reimbursements? Stopped cold. The copay cards and quiet pharmacy pickups? Over. They were about to learn what no support actually looks like. 2 weeks passed. Then came the knock. I peeked through the peephole, and there she was, Cassidy. No makeup, hair in a half-done bun, a diaper bag slung over one shoulder and a box of store-bought cookies in the other hand. I opened the door just wide enough. She didn't wait for an invitation, just walked in and dropped the cookies on the counter like it was 1997 and we were still sisters. "Okay," she started, "I can't do this." No greeting, no preamble, just chaos. "They fight all the time," she said, running a hand through her hair. "Mom says the living room's too cramped. Dad complains about the kids. They won't even agree to share a bathroom. I'm losing my damn mind." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. She kept going. "They eat everything, like everything. Mom says she's nervous snacking, and Dad says it's stress hunger. I bought groceries yesterday and came home to empty shelves. My kids had cereal for dinner, and not the good kind. I didn't speak. They told me you'd help, like, just with a deposit or something, a little rental, a month or two, until they figure things out. I stayed quiet. Then she said it. You can't just abandon your family over one holiday mistake. That was the moment. I stepped forward, not in anger, but with crystal clarity. You stood there, Cassidy, I said. You stood there when they told Mia there was no room. You watched her drive home in the dark, alone, without a plate of food or a place to sleep, and you said nothing. She blinked. The confidence cracked. I was trying to keep the peace. You kept the lie. That's different. Silence stretched between us. I finally said, This is me keeping the peace. For my daughter, for myself. She hesitated, looked down, then back at me. She's your niece. No, I said calmly. Mia is my daughter, and I'm done choosing everyone else over her. Cassidy didn't argue. She just turned around, pulled open the front door, and walked out. No goodbye, no thank you. Just the sound of her footsteps retreating down the porch like someone who knew the door behind her wasn't opening again. A week later, I heard they kicked them out too. Couldn't take it. Couldn't carry the weight of people who believe love is something owed, not earned. My parents ended up in a rundown rental with peeling paint and a front step that slanted like a shrug. The vacations? Gone. The wine club? Canceled. The anniversary cruise they bragged about last year? Forgotten. And somehow, even then, they still didn't ask what happened. They just blamed me. But I didn't care. Because for the first time, I wasn't rescuing anyone. I was choosing Mia. And I'd do it again. 2 months later, Mia and I sat on the porch of our quiet little home, sipping iced tea. No holiday plans, no phone calls, no forced gatherings, or we're still family guilt trips. Just peace. The sky was pale blue, the kind of afternoon that hums quietly in the background of a life you finally chose. Mia had her legs tucked under her, book open on her lap, earbuds dangling. She looked over at me and smiled, genuine, not forced. You know, she said, I don't miss them. I looked at her for a long second. I didn't either. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was solid, real, like we were sitting in something clean, something that didn't need fixing. That week, the final documents came through. The house I had once bought for my parents had officially sold. No negotiations, no pleading voicemails. I didn't inflate the price or try to squeeze every dollar from it. I just wanted closure. The money went straight into Mia's college fund. Not a cent wasted. It felt right. They were still in the same crumbling rental. 2 tiny rooms, 1 loud space heater, a broken dishwasher that never got fixed. I didn't know all the details. I didn't ask. What I did know, they kept talking. According to extended family, my parents were telling anyone who'd listen that I was unstable, ungrateful, cruel. They said I'd left them out on the street without warning. What they didn't say? That I'd paid their mortgage for 7 years, covered their health plans, bought their groceries, fought for their dignity harder than they ever fought for mine. So I quietly sent out the receipts, copies of bills, screenshots of transfers, the official notice of eviction, stamped and dated. No drama, just facts. One cousin texted back, wow, I had no idea. Another sent a single thumbs up emoji. That was all I needed. I didn't want revenge, I wanted accountability. And the truth, that's harder to outrun than any eviction letter. A few days ago, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I opened it without thinking. Hope you're proud of what you've done. Delete, no hesitation. They'll probably text again, Mia said, half smiling. They always do, I replied, but they're not my problem anymore. Because here's the thing about family. They once told my daughter there wasn't room for her at their table. Now there's no room in our lives for cruelty, for guilt, for manipulation disguised as tradition. We don't need 30 guests or fold-out chairs. We need truth. We need each other. We need space where love isn't conditional. And Mia, she's thriving. She got into the school she wanted, environmental science, of course. She wants to build something better, something real. The money from that house paid more than just tuition. It bought us freedom. It bought me a second chance to do what I should have done years ago. Choose her, protect her, believe her. And maybe that's what all this comes down to. Not revenge, not punishment. Just a daughter, a fold-out chair, and a mother who finally said, you deserve better than this, and I'm not asking for space anymore. I'm taking it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a table where love is no longer being served, even if that table belongs to your own family. It's not about revenge, it's not about proving anyone wrong. It's about choosing peace over performance, boundaries over guilt, and protecting the people who protect your heart. You don't owe anyone your silence to keep their comfort. You don't owe anyone a seat at your table simply because of blood. What you owe is to yourself, and to those who've done nothing but show up with full hearts and empty hands. Here's to the quiet strength of choosing differently, of choosing yourself, of choosing your child. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been told there was no room, no space, no seat, just know this. You get to build your own table now. Thank you for watching. If you want more stories like this, stories of resilience, of quiet rebellion, of love that finally says enough, subscribe to Sweet Revenge Happy Ending, where every ending begins with a choice.